Hello and welcome to the Parent Survival Kit podcast, from surviving to thriving in your household. My name is Sonia Schwalen, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful bride, Dr. Sonia Schwalen, pediatric psychologist expert, nationally certified school psychologist. We've got a great two-part series coming up starting today, Building Character. We're going to talk about parents first, and then next episode, next week, we'll go into the kids. But building character and just really defining who we are. So let's talk about character and what that really means. So when I say character, what do you think of, Dr. Schwalen?
Mickey Mouse. I'm kidding. Character, that's a really good, that's like defining character. So character has a lot to do with personal characteristics, who you are trying to be in this world and what kind of persona even you want to lead with. But it's like true, genuine types of characteristics, right? It's not fake. So when I say persona, I don't mean be fake, right? I'm talking about how you want to lead, the type of person you want to be in this world when you interact with others, or even when people are thinking about you. What are the types of things you want them to know about you or think about you based on how their interactions with you go?
Absolutely. So when the curtain is peeled away, who are you really to your very, very core?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think character is something that you can adjust and form and change, right?
And build. We talk about building character all the time.
Building character is a real thing, right? And so we can build character in ourselves. We can build character in our kids. So something we can set our mind to and really accomplish is whatever kind of character we want to have. But there's also some of it that comes very naturally to us.
Sure. Well, and a lot of it is based on how we were raised as kids and what our parents instilled in us. And that's really kind of what we want to talk about more, I guess, today. You know, the last couple of weeks we talked about, the 1st of January, we talked about goal setting and whatnot, what that looks like, what that means. And then last week we talked about just time management skills to really give ourselves more time for us, for our family, for our kids, for all that we really care to do. And I think our character is also built a lot about what our beliefs are, what we value, what fulfills us and whatnot. And I was listening to a sermon a few days ago, which really made me think about character. And the pastor that was speaking, he just made a comment. He goes, the best thing we can leave our kids is is character. Like who are their parents? What is their character? That's the best way we can teach our kids is through our own character. So let's kind of dive in, and I was thinking about some things, and, we're in this day and age now where everything's about us. It's about me, me, me. We have selfies everywhere. Everyone takes selfies. You can be in your car taking a selfie. And I know you think it's funny because I know someone very close to me that likes to do that every now and then, more as a funny joke. But, I remember as a kid going on vacations, and we used to drive everywhere in this van, all 4 kids, mom and dad, get the ice chest, snacks, fighting over who's going to sit where in the back, who gets the big long bed that folds out and who doesn't. But we went to a lot of really cool places across the U.S. And I remember going to see the Grand Canyon as an example, going to, to the Smoky Mountains and all these, beautiful places you get to see. And back then, you sit there and you just enjoy the presence of where you're at. You just enjoy being in the moment. Nowadays it's okay. Hey, we're here to take a selfie. Okay, we can go on next place, next thing. And it's selfie, me. And so it made me think about, Austin Powers, Dr. Evil and Mini Me, and it made me think that, our kids are going to end up being just like us. And it's all going to be focused on me.
Yeah.
And what we're teaching. Facebook is all about me. Here's what I think. Here's my thoughts. Here's what I saw. Here's what I did. Check me out, and so character. What are some characteristics you think that are important for us to really, I guess, demonstrate for our kids?
Well, I like to actually ask that question of all the families that come to work with me. I'll say, when you're thinking about who you want your child or children to be in this world, what comes to mind first? So I'll share with you just like some common answers, right? Lots of parents want their children to be really good at self-advocating. They think it's important that their child has a voice and has confidence and can speak up for their needs. Okay, lots of parents will say, "I want my child to be honest. I want them to have integrity." Which means they're going to do what's right no matter what or who's looking, right? And I want my child to make good decisions, like to have a good head on their shoulders. I hear that one all the time when I say what kind of character. I always get that one to be. And when I think from like a biblical perspective or from a parenting perspective, like what does that really mean? We're trying to teach our kids. I think we're trying to teach our kids discernment or how to have a discerning mind and to really be true to who they are or what they find is important. So those are some examples. And when I hear those examples, I support those examples. I think those are very good ideas of good character and how to build, like focus on what to build in a child. Other times I hear different things, and I think it's good to talk about what is an example of building character and what character topics are and what they're not. So what it's not, sometimes parents will say, well, I want my child to eat well or follow directions or stop being defiant. It's not really follow directions because, following directions and being compliant and respecting authority, I mean, that is part of good character, right? It's more of I just don't want them to be defiant or I want them to stop yelling or I want them to stop fighting with their brother or I want them to stop being disrespectful. When we're thinking about character, we're not thinking about what we want our kids to stop doing or what they shouldn't be doing. It's really like, how do you want them to approach situations in their life on a bigger level? Like, what's the big picture? Think higher than just like the day-to-day interactions, even though that's really where the character building moments happen. But it's think about the overall picture of how they're going to live in the world and what kind of person do you want them to be.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it kind of goes, one thing that you say a lot is, it takes a village to build a child and raise a child and whatnot to make change in the child as well. But one thing that I think we forget as parents, because kids are going to school so often, so we have really less one-on-one time, especially during the school year with our kids than I do at school. But from all the things that I've learned from you and just things that I've read and whatnot, everything kids learn is really caught and not really taught. There are definitely teaching moments, right? So what I would like to do for today is really, because it got me thinking as a parent, let's break down kind of, our character as a parent and let's do kind of a self-reflection of where we're at. And then what can we do to really be the very best we can so that our kids are catching nothing but greatness as often as possible. And then when they do see us fail, they see how we get up and how we continue on and persevere and move forward and get through that as well, because that's also very important for kids. So I was researching and I really wanted to find like some of the best qualities I'd want to leave my child from a character building standpoint. And so I went to the greatest book with all the best knowledge ever in the Bible. And there's 7 qualities that it's spoken about. And the first one is virtue. And then from virtue, it goes to knowledge. From knowledge, self-control. From self-control to steadfastness or perseverance. And then to godliness. And then to brotherly affection. Then to love. And then so when I was going through those and then it said love, I'm like, man, the one thing that we're supposed to do more than anything is love our neighbors ourselves. And with all these selfies, I obviously love myself. So it shouldn't be too hard to, so it should be pretty easy to love my neighbor because I love myself, right? So how do we reflect on ourselves to build character to help us improve in areas as parents? Because we all struggle. We all have our faults. I know that I do. We all do, right? So how do we self-reflect and how do we work on ourselves to be the very best for our kids?
So, that's key, right? So if we're just focusing right now on our character as parents, the self part is what's really important there. So I don't ever recommend when you're having this conversation for the first time of, going to your spouse and telling them all the things that they need to be working on or that they could be doing better, right? this is really about you trying to make sure that you're reflecting on just yourself. Like if we're going to go biblical here, like, look at the plank in your own eye, right? And then as parents, you guys do that together, right? So, as the mom, I would look at myself, and then as the dad, you would look at yourself. And then if we're feeling very open and it's okay to like go there, we're going to share that list with each other. And then we're going to do everything we can to keep it to ourselves, right? When we think they missed something.
Yeah, so it's back to selfie mode though. Again, it sounds like it's kind of funny. It's like a hindsight 2020,
yeah,
right?
Right. But for this part, like the beginning of this conversation or this introspection, that approach is really I think the most useful, because we're not trying to stir up conflict or who's right and who's wrong. None of that. We really want to take that introspective approach. So one of the best ways to do that is just out of any, start with 1 week at a time. And for the entire week, at the end of every day, before you wind down for the night and call it quits for the day, you just pull out a quick little journal or a piece of paper or type it up on your phone, whatever, but just write down a few scenarios of the day, okay, that occurred and what you did and how you handled them. And that's it. And over time, over that 1 week, you're going to start seeing what your character is. All right? Now, keep in mind that the act of keeping data, just baseline data, is an intervention in itself. So if I know, like, tonight I have to answer to myself and I need to be able to write down something really good, you're going to start acting differently.
That makes sense.
Right? So you want to work really hard for that first few days where you are just keeping data on yourself, to not change anything. Okay? Like nothing is to change right now. You want to just get that baseline, and a true accurate baseline. And then we can kind of look and go from there in terms of, okay, what was my character? How did I respond to these situations? Some of these situations I think I did well. Some of these situations I'm just not that proud of. And that's how you can really figure out what your character is.
Okay. Well, and I think that's awesome examples and guidance there. It made me laugh because I'm like, well, man, I'm going to need more than one piece of paper, I think. And I'm not going to have more good than bad or bad than good, So it is. It's kind of like, when I work out and I'm like trying to, eat healthy and be fit, I may look at the foods I'm eating and see if I'm eating too much sugar and whatnot. And when I'm tracking all of my food throughout the day, then it does make me like, I'm not going to eat that because then I got to log it and it's not going to look good in my, And anyway, one thing that I think is also really important is to really determine, and this is where self-reflection really comes in, is really determine what is most important long-term success. What does that really look like? Because for some of us, we're chasing that, we want the nice house and the cars and we want that retirement, and that's all great stuff. I mean, retirement and leaving a legacy for your kids, and but what does it really look like? What does a successful life look like to someone? And what is if you were to pass today, what would your obituary say about you? That you had a nice house and car and that you left, $1 million to your kids. Is that really what's important? What would your obituary say? And then I think once we can see like what really defines what's most important, that can also help guide us in that self-reflection of what is most important for our character.
Yeah, I mean, that'll give you some perspective, right? What would my obituary say? Or, even deathbed advice. Like if you're on your deathbed, is this the stuff that's really going to matter when you're reflecting back on your life? And then what kind of legacy do you want to leave for your children? Those are all great questions. They help with that perspective. They help put things into perspective. They help you reprioritize really what's important. And then that can help guide you in what kinds of changes you need to start making.
Okay. So when you're seeing parents and whatnot with kids and you're seeing some of the issues, and there's all different types of, obviously, concerns parents come in with their kids, things that the kids are struggling with, families are struggling with. Give me some examples of some of the common areas where you are actually working with families with some of this character building and things that need to be, worked on or changed and whatnot?
I mean, I have very concrete sessions that focus just around this topic, so we've talked about it on here before, where I may ask families to even just consider their family values and really just start even thinking about that. What's important to us? What do we want to stand for as a family? And then character building is really how you get there. So how do you accomplish those values? So if you're a family that, wants to value something like integrity or respect or having fun or honesty, kindness, things like that, your moments in parenting are really going to focus on developing that character in your child. So I always say as parents, first look at what your values are. That's kind of where you start. And then think about do that little homework assignment where every night for a week you're just reflecting on the day and how you handled your situations, no matter if there's something you're proud of or not. And then once you realize, okay, these are the areas that we need to work on, right? Go ahead and give a play-by-play. I always say that to parents, and it's so important, and it really resonates with dads, especially because it's such a sports term. But if you're struggling with something, go ahead and give a play-by-play. Like, I'm really stressed out right now. I have too much running through my mind, so I just need a minute, and then I'll be able to talk with you. And if you say that, everybody then understands in the family, what's going on. It's not the same old approach of, oh, well, there's dad. He seems agitated and he just no one can talk to him, or mom even, because it can happen with either parent. Now you're starting to be an open communicator. You're starting to be genuine, authentic, transparent. This is good character. These are the kinds of things that people hope to become one day, but they just don't know how to get there. You're also teaching your kids internal, self-talk of, I'm having a hard time, but I'm going to get through it. Or, I'm really proud of myself today. I got so many things done. I deserve a pat on my back. And you're just bragging almost, but it's modeling confidence and self-approval and self-affirmation. So I always say, be the character that you want your child to see, right? It's kind of what you're saying. What do you want to leave behind? You have to model it for them. So the play-by-play is a number one tip that I'll give. Start speaking out your process out loud, verbally. Just announce it. I'm so sorry that I came across that way, but I want you to know that I'm going to try differently next time. Will you forgive me? Even that type of conflict resolution is something you want your kids to see. Because if they know, okay, there's a little bit of tension between mom and dad right now, and it's uncomfortable and awkward, for them to see the recovery of that tension is really important too, because they need to understand what good conflict resolution looks like, what open communication looks like, what someone with integrity and respect would do in a situation like that.
Yeah, and showing empathy as well, which is really key to really cultivating all the characteristics that we all want to build, in different ways. And forgiveness obviously is huge. If we can forgive and forgive over and over again, then life's much better, obviously.
But okay, so even what you just said, I mean, I will spend session upon session with clients of just talking about that, because forgiveness is a really hard thing for a lot of people. It's not the first to go to. It's not something that families do. So, in sessions, I'll even have to say, do you guys say you're sorry? How do you even do conflict resolution? And a lot of times, many families will say, yeah, we just kind of all blow up, or we have a lot of tension. And then the next hour, we all come back together and we act like nothing happened. And from the kid's perspective, I will tell you, every single child I've ever spoken to, they can't handle that scenario. They don't like it. They don't feel like anybody talks about anything. They believe that it's really difficult to pretend like everything's okay when it's not. And they don't feel understood or validated like anyone cares about what I'm thinking or feeling. They really want that healing. They want that hole or that void that occurred or that hurt, right, to be addressed. So most families will say that. That's actually very common, to just have a conflict and then act like nothing happened afterwards. So going out of your way to model, well, hold on, let's talk about forgiveness. The only way that this process is going to work is if everyone first understands that as human beings, we're going to make the same mistake over and over and over again. We are creatures of habit. We are stuck in our ways. Like, that is just the way it is.
We are all very selfish.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right? It's just a part of human nature. And so because we know that we're going to make the same mistake over and over again, we should also expect it in the co-parent, that they're going to make mistakes, and it's just a part of being a grown-up. We're not going to get anywhere with change if we don't come to the table and say, okay, we all want this to be different. Like, that's the one thing we all do have in common. So we're willing to hold each other accountable, but also forgive and forgive and forgive again. And so teaching families even just how to ask for forgiveness is several family therapy sessions that I've done before. And then the understanding that this is not going to happen overnight, and it's going to feel like it's getting worse before it gets better. And we're going to see the exact same issues come up again and again and again. That's part of human nature. But those small changes, or that willingness to say, oh, I did it, you're right, like, there I go again, please forgive me, that's what's healing. That's what makes the difference. And then that's where you see growth and character change.
Yeah, that made me think also, when you talked about, that was me. When I coach my kids in baseball and basketball and just all my experience with coaching, the one thing that I would drive home more than anything, which is character building as well, is that we're going to all fall and make mistakes, okay? And we're going to hopefully fall or fail forward. But just being humble enough to say, you know what, that was me. Raise your hand, pat your chest. Hey, man, that's me. That's on me. Because people can rally around you when you do that, and that makes a big, huge difference. And I think that's what's missing a lot of times, is that we're so scared to ever be wrong. We can't be wrong because it's wrong to be wrong, right? And you're gonna be looked down upon, and it's really, everyone's wrong quite often. One thing I was thinking about also is really looking at, if I could change anything within me, or if I can improve something, or if I could actually talk about character, if I could build this character or draw this character and play it out like Mickey Mouse in a cartoon skit, what would I want my character to be like? How would I want my character to be perceived in that cartoon script?
I mean, that's an excellent idea of it. It's also of, it has a lot to do with how are you perceived by others. When you think about that word character, is like, how do others think about you? What do they think of when they think of me, kind of thing. But it's really, who are you trying to be in the world? So I like it when people make it a little bit more personal. It's not really about what other people think of you. You're not trying to get other people's approval, because you can move into that territory and it kind of messes it all up.
Sure.
So think about character as, like, who am I trying to be in this world? What kind of difference do I want to make in this world? And it all starts with me, especially when you're a parent. It does all start with you. Your children are direct reflections of what they're seeing you and your co-parent do.
Yeah, little mini-me's, right?
Yeah, they definitely are. And it's really hard for parents to even accept that sometimes, that really what we're seeing in your child is because they're seeing it modeled at home. But there's no way of getting around it. They watch you all day long. They see everything that's happening. And so, if there's a lot of negativity in the home, for example, and there's not a lot of gratitude being verbalized, then don't be surprised when your kid starts complaining, because that's what's happening in the home.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's some of the things I wanted to talk about also. Having an attitude of gratitude is key. And then being, Lee and I were speaking before we started today, and, we're just talking about character and character building in kids and in us. And, he talked about being coachable, and, it made me also think of servant leadership and as parents, with our own character, we should have an attitude of servant leadership as well, because our kids, again, are seeing all that and they're catching these things. So how can we be the best servant leader possible and reflect that for our kids.
So one thing I want to say about building character or just parenting in general, I think is like not going to be fun for anybody to hear. But the fact is that we never get a break from it. Okay. We can't forget that we are parenting when our kids are around us because we're always on, right? And it's hard because you're at your home. Your home is supposed to be that place where you can chill out and veg out and just like go for the day and be yourself. But it's really not. I mean, intentional parenting, if they're around you, I mean, you're on. And and I'm reminded of this because I literally was just talking to a good friend of mine, and she has a 2-year-old, and she was saying, we started potty training, and I put my son, in undies, and in like 10 minutes, he had completely soaked the couch. And it was the first day that she had started him in wearing underwear and didn't even click to it that like, okay, now he's in underwear. So that means like every 10 or 15 minutes, I have to take him to the potty, right? Well, why would she? It's her first child. Like, she's just being her. And all of a sudden in that moment, she remembers like, wait, I'm the mom here. And I just put undies on a kid that has never worn them before. Of course he's going to drench the couch. And of course it's on me to set an alarm every 15 minutes and take him to the bathroom and be all over this. Right. But that one moment of just like going off and being herself for a second, she pays for it because now the couch is drenched. And so it takes a lot of intentionality and diligence, and the fact that we have to remember many times a day that we are someone's mom or someone's dad. We have to remind ourselves of that every day and multiple times a day. Because if we don't, we're going to fall right back in old habits. We're not going to be intentional. And then our kids are going to see us and pick up on all those other things that we really wish we wouldn't pass along.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. It made me think of our 3-year-old when he was 2, going through potty training and taking his underwear off and running around and peeing on the floor everywhere because he just thought it was hilarious. And, what are you going to do now? And now he's running around. He just turned 3, and now he's running around saying, okay, I'm using my coping skills now. You know?
Oh, you can tell his mom's a psychologist, right?
So funny. But it is. I mean, we're always on, and, if and I was thinking like, all right, so we're always on, and we have these situations that come up and these kids that drive us insane sometimes or all the time.
We
and
can't
whatnot.
even sit down. We can't take our shoes off. We
or
can't
as soon as we sit down to
relax.
eat our meal, all of a sudden there's a dirty diaper we got to go change, or something's going on, or hey, Dad, can you take me here? And it's just non-stop.
That's right.
But it's kind of funny too. And if you think about it, there's, how do you respond to this situation in the grocery store or in the middle of the mall? And then how do you respond to the same situation at home? And there's a lot of times where they're different, right? Because there's somebody watching and there's a crowd, or, we can't let our guard down there. So if we can really practice that more at home too, it can also make a big difference.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what integrity is all about, right? Doing what's right even when no one is looking.
All right. So as we close this podcast today, can you just give us some tips as far as some things that you mentioned doing some journaling each day and reflecting, throughout the week? What other tips can we walk away with today to really help us really improve some of the characteristics that we really want to just shine on our kids?
I mean, life lesson of the day, I think really is parenting isn't about you. Like if you really want to be that intentional parent, it's kind of like what the 5 love languages, in the first part of that book, the author explicitly states like love is not for you, right? So love is always about the other person. And I think, learning someone's love language so that you can better love them and make them feel loved, like that's what that whole thing is about. And so in parenting, I think parenting, it's not about you. And, if you have children, this very well, that you are constantly on and you have the choice about being intentional or not, right? And if you're going to let your guard down, then at least work on yourself enough so that even when your guard is down, your character is such that it's going to end up leaving a good example for your child. So journaling is absolutely one of those tips. Today I also talked about giving the play-by-play so your children can have access to kind of like an internal dialogue about what is going on with you and how you are dealing with it, and then letting them see conflict resolution. So letting them see what forgiveness looks like, what integrity and respect for others looks like, allowing those things to happen in the home and not shy away from them, because how you deal with real life situations is what they're seeing.
That's your character.
Yeah, that's your character.
All right. So being a parent, there's no more selfies because it's not about self. It's dying to self and giving to your kids, at least for 18 years and whatnot. And that's really the one thing that I think we can drive home to our kids too. If we can teach them how to give and not be of self, you know, we can definitely be a lot happier in the home and in the home as well. So thanks for tuning in to the Parent Survival Podcast, from surviving to thriving in your household. And we will look forward to seeing you next week for part 2, where we talk about building characteristics and character in our children. See you next week.